I'm here with Mike Holland. Welcome to the Worth the Fight podcast.
Thank you, brother.
Great to have you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive in. How have psychedelics informed your path?
Oh, we're starting right there.
We're starting right there. Yes.
So let's see. I'd say three or 4 years ago, I found myself in a place where I basically had everything that I would have ever wanted, right? I had plenty of money. I had a great relationship, a girl who loved me, taking care of her kids. We were just, life was good. I lived life on my own terms to a large degree. However, for whatever reason, I just wasn't fulfilled. And I didn't love her back. I didn't love my life, but yet on paper, I had everything that I thought that I wanted. And then what kind of I realized, I guess, is that I didn't love myself. So I went on a journey to seek out some answers, I guess you could say. So that led me to a journey in Costa Rica to sit with the ayahuasca. And then after that, that was a tough experience. Came out of that, wanted to be involved. And I feel like I just didn't get the answers that I wanted. And that led me to sit with Bufo, 5-MeO-DMT. And that kind of gave me some clarity and kind of a reframe of life and changed my perspective on a lot of things. And in between all that was my journey with microdosing and mushrooms and just using that as like a not as big of a commitment as those two modalities. Microdose and mushrooms was more like, hey, you utilize this as a tool on your own structure and schedule. It's not so much like you have to go to a ceremony to do that on the microdosing platform. So yeah, all that combined and brought me to where I am today, and I could finally say that I'm at a place of peace finally in my life, and things are good.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful to hear it. Thank you for your open sharing. And
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
really, really strong energy. And I appreciate your vulnerability and your courage to be raw and real about, was it, you said 3 to 4 years ago?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I've checked all the boxes. I should be feeling more. And so you felt the calling to for something deeper, and then you found ayahuasca. How did you find ayahuasca? I'm always curious as to how did it come into your field of awareness? I know for me, there was 3 like noticeable signals within a short amount of time, and I wrote about that in Worth the Fight. It often kind of calls to us, and then I was like, at first, and this was back in 2014 for me, is like I was having these strong, powerful journeys with psilocybin, and then I was like, wait, there's something stronger than psilocybin? Like, I'm on the first plane to Costa Rica.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that where you went as well?
Yeah.
So for me, funny enough, we go to the same gym, right? Anatomy, and this was back in the old anatomy days, and that had a very small sauna. I don't know if you remember them, but it was a real small sauna, and I was sitting there. I would go in there and just overhear conversations, and I overheard these guys talking about ayahuasca, and I had no idea what it was, never even heard that word before, and then again, like a couple days later, somebody else starts talking about ayahuasca, and then I'm in the sauna with a buddy of mine, Kyle, who's still a member at the gym and everything. And he's like, hey, I asked him, I said, hey, do you know anything about ayahuasca? You know those guys who were talking about the other day? He goes, oh yeah. He's like, if you ever are into going to ayahuasca, look at this place called Rhythmia in Costa Rica. He's like, that's like the place you got to go. So I was like, all right. Next day I go in the sauna. This guy saying how he got sober. He was a drug addict forever, and now he's sober. He had this crazy journey on ayahuasca. So I was like, there was just multiple signs. So I was like, you know what? I didn't even join any of those conversations. I just kind of listened. And then I went home and I looked up this place, started doing all my due diligence. I was like, man, checking out this place, Rhythmia in Costa Rica. And it's like a high end, like a very, if you're familiar with it, it's like a bougie way, I guess, to go sit with plant medicine.
5 stars.
I guess. Yeah.
White linens.
Yeah, you're not in the jungle, whatever, puking in your hands, you got set up. So anyway, so I looked up, and how I do anything is how I do everything. That's just how I live my life. So I did the research, was like, called the company. It was like, yeah, I want to come now. They were like, no, you got to like follow a diet for 30 days and get certain things out of your system. I said, all right, well, book me for the first available. So I just booked the 30-day out, followed their diet, like getting off any type of like, coffee or caffeine or changing up your diet, however they recommend.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's how I ended up on that journey. What was that question? I don't even know what the question was. Where we're at.
Just the, what it inspired it,
Uh-huh.
and how you found it.
Oh yeah, how I
I
came
think it
about
was,
ayahuasca. So yeah, that was the sauna journey, people chatting about it or whatever, and then 30 days later, next thing I know, I'm in the jungles of Costa Rica sitting with that medicine, and for those 4 nights in a row. And the way they structure that is like 3 nights of breath work, like holotropic breath work, like the intense kind of, you can have like a psychedelic experience, that type of breath work, and then 4 nights of plant medicine.
wow.
And then progressively getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then the final night of plant medicine, I remember that journey was like 16 hours. It was intense,
Wow.
super intense. Yeah. So I had different experiences each night, a couple experiences that I didn't even have anything. I just sat and just didn't feel the effects of the medicine or anything. Just wasn't the right time, place, or setting for me that night. And then the culmination, the last night was intense.
Wow. Amazing, powerful. What was the intensity? Can you describe that? What was coming up, or?
Yeah. So the intense night, that's the only one that really made an impact on my life, I guess, is I went there with the intention of am I worthy of love? Like, I didn't love myself essentially. So that medicine essentially gave me the opportunity to, I wasn't surrendering to it. So for those, like, there was probably an 8-hour stretch there where I was just trying to kill myself. So I was just trying to stop myself from breathing. I'd stop, I'd feel myself, my heart get to like where it felt like it was about to stop. And then one of the shaman's helpers, or like an angel, would come up and say, hey, just breathe. And I'd gasp for air. And that happened twice. And then finally I felt the urge of the medicine just kind of like had to get out of me, and I was going to throw up. So I went to throw up, throw my guts up into the bucket, and I felt my head was still in the bucket. So I was like, oh, perfect. I could just kill myself here. Like, it's cutting off the airway, my carotid artery, blood to my brain. So I was like, I'll just stay here. So I kept my head there, and same voice came over. It's like, hey, pick your head up. It's okay, brother. It's okay. So that happened twice. So I tried to stop breathing twice, tried to cut off my airway twice. And then finally I was like, you know what, I'm done. Because in you do a lot of classwork, a lot of schoolwork for at that place, like 4 or 5 hours. You're in the classroom learning about the medicine, learning about the history, learning about all these different things. And I just remember on repeat, they said, no one has ever died from ayahuasca. No one has ever died from ayahuasca is what they kind of like repeat to probably like alleviate the fear that you might
Sure.
have
Yeah.
sitting with the medicine. And my brain, that's just how it works. I was like, oh, I'm going to prove them wrong. Like, I'll be the first one, sure. Ego, a big part of this, not surrendering, huge part. I'm not a very easygoing person. I'm very like aggressive and like, just how my personality is. And yeah, you don't want to do that with these medicines. They're quite strong. And I learned that the hard way. And it just so happens, it's like, medicine doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need. So that's what I took from that experience. So I'm grateful that occurred, but it wasn't an enjoyable experience whatsoever,
Yeah, thank you for bringing us into that. And it's such an unconventional medicine, and it's so hard to describe. Ineffability is a hallmark of the experience. So we do the best we can to describe it, and we're severely bound by language, because it's kind of, again, otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
What you'd said about worthiness was really resonant.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a time when I was in ceremony, and I suppose that's the same intention why I went there. And maybe I didn't articulate that at the time. I wasn't aware that I was disconnected from self-love.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly, if you looked at the way I treated myself with alcohol and horrible foods, there was a lot of self-abuse.
Sure.
And but there was a time during the ceremony where it was a second ceremony where I bit into the mantra that I'm worthy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
worthy. And I wouldn't let that go. and there, there's a lot of talk about surrender, but then there's also like, hey, this is something I'm not going to let go of. And then there's just the most beautiful thing opened, in my mind, and it was the most peaceful experience, and it inspired this journey that I've been on years later, a visionary experience on how to get myself out of the toxic situation, toxic codependent business relationship, and all that. So how were you able to integrate the data, the insights, the inspiration from that deep dive, crucible, intervention, spiritual intervention, it kind of is, into your day-to-day lives to be healthy, happy, and strong, do the work that you're here to do?
Yeah. Well, I'd say that like that ayahuasca was just like the starting point, right? I had that experience. I took the integration phase of what I was kind of trying to learn from that experience, and I knew deep down I didn't get the answers that I wanted. So that's what it's like. Ayahuasca, I feel like I had to go sit with in order to get to Bufo. Because if I would have got those answers in ayahuasca, I'm not somebody who's just like recreationally like into this type of mind altering things. No, I'm very like present. I want to live here in this life that we have like now. So I was just looking for the answer of trying to figure out whether I was worthy of love. So I wouldn't say that I got that answer from ayahuasca. What I did get is like, hey, keep searching. This isn't the medicine that's going to give you that answer. Maybe you connect with something else. And that led me to Bufo. Now I don't know enough about the medicines, but I've been told, like from the shamans I've worked with, some are very masculine and some are very feminine, and not everybody kind of resonates with the certain kind of energies.
There's no right or wrong. We're all different.
Yes. So whatever ayahuasca is, I think that's a feminine energy. Like I didn't vibe with, so it led me to Bufo, which Bufo was like an extremely blissful experience. I dissolved out of this dimension. I died and I came back to life, and I've been grateful for every breath I've taken since that time.
Wow.
Yeah. So Bufo, I'd say, is the reason that kind of things kind of went into place from me. And that was probably 6 months or 8 months after ayahuasca. And then ever since Bufo might have been two or 2.5 years ago or so. Ever since then, I feel like I've been at like peace with myself. Yeah.
Amazing.
Which has been pretty
really,
cool.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
I so appreciate your open sharing. And that brings to mind, I'm thinking about some past recollections of hearing, and I think it's all kind of integrated, and the medicine path will catalyze us. Yes, we're going to resonate with some medicines more than the others. And I've heard that many times where someone has had that experience with ayahuasca, and then the major turning point happened 3 to 6 months later, where someone had had an incredible experience with mushrooms. Or I know, a dear friend, she found Jesus 3 to 6 months after doing ayahuasca, and she's like so grateful for the ayahuasca journey, because she believes that would have, her revelations would have never happened had she not had that experience to kind of catalyze that. And I just think that's beautiful how it can set in motion this spiritual journey, and the plasticity is it's strong. You get, they say that mushrooms, if we take a high dose mushrooms experience, we're going to have the connections that are forming, are going to be, the fMRI is still going to show connections out 3 to 4 weeks out in our brain, that are happening acutely, but that are still persisting even a month later. And I think that with ayahuasca, it's probably a few months that we're having those. And but great to hear that you've had that experiences with 5-MeO DMT. I've never had that ritual. Frankly, it kind of scares me a little bit. It's so incredibly powerful. I think I just saw recently, the last few days, that they're setting up phase 3 clinical trials with Bufo. Okay. And Bufo is going to be poised to be a part of the Western medical psychiatric model as for treatment resistant depression, because it, more so than like psilocybin or LSD, it fits in it's short. It's a 20-minute experience, something like that. Yeah. Versus LSD, where somebody's tripping for 12 hours. Like that's two shifts. That's a lot for the people to be caretaking for them. Yeah. And watching them guiding them, etc.
Do you not have currently? You're not called to sit with that medicine.
No,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
no. Maybe sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
A lot of people ask me about it, and I would never tell anyone to ever do any of these medicines unless, it's just not me to ever recommend. I would only like share my experience, and then, hey, if you feel called to that, then it will happen.
Yeah.
It's not something that I don't think it is. It's just something you just randomly do. I think you're supposed to be there with that medicine at that time if it's meant to be.
Beautiful.
I truly do.
I share the same sentiment when it comes to this. All we can do is share our experiences, and then invite possibility. And when the time is right, and I've also seen, I've hosted hundreds, maybe thousands of meetings around community meetings around psychedelia, and I've seen people that have forced it, and I know that that's not a good thing, because I've seen people untethered, where they're in manic episodes, and that's it can get us into some trouble, when we're so it's like, again, having the deep reverence, having the calling from within. The reverence is going to show. With that, you're going to have the same preparation that you took, of like, hey, this is serious stuff. And I remember I had the same preparation, same reverence with ayahuasca back in 2014. I'm like, I'm going out of the country. I'm having this experience with strangers, drinking jungle juice with 20 other people I don't know.
Yeah.
I like, bad things happen outside the pale, so it's like, wanted to be fully prepared and ready to get the most out of it, as opposed to, something willy-nilly, like, oh, this looks fun.
They're very serious medicines, and I believe they should be treated that way. And hopefully, if they do get integrated into our society here, they are held and in that regard, because you know how it is. Big pharma, like we talk about that, and the shirts that you mentioned and all that. It's like big pharma to me. First off, let me define big pharma. Big pharma to me is like the energy within that whole industry. It's not like big pharma by terms of like CNBC is going to say, oh, it's like the top 5 big pharmaceutical companies. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the greed and corruption embedded into the industry.
Yes.
To me, is big pharma. The fact that people get into these industries solely to make money first and foremost, because that's what they are. They're for-profit businesses. And then, yes, if they could help people, that might come down the line. But with these types of medicines, I believe that first and foremost, they come to the table to like help people heal. And then sure, if it gets embedded into society here and it gets monetized, eventually it has to have a monetary system. Somebody has to pay for it. I get that, but I'm just a believer, and it's everything that I do on social media and everything. I'm passionate about helping people take control of their health so they can live life on their own terms. That's what I think plant medicine does as well. It's like truly helps people heal, where pharmaceutical industry, they don't want you to be 100% healthy, because then you no longer have a customer.
Say, do they want us to heal?
Not necessarily. I think that's what I'm saying. They want to make money first and foremost.
We're good. 20 years of antidepressants, you're a really good customer.
Great. Now you're seeing the same thing with the semaglutides and the GLP-1s. It's like they're treating obesity like it's a disease. I'm not sure that's the case. I'm pretty sure that if you just eat clean and move daily, you could keep your weight under control. I don't think children should be injected with stomach paralysis so that they could lose weight. I feel like that's a very, very, very horrible thing that people are pushing. And who's pushing that? Well, Big Pharma's pushing that because they see dollar signs. They see they can put kids on medications and bill the insurance thousands of dollars a month. And then if the child is on it at a young age, that could be like a lifelong thing. That to me is like criminal.
When all they need to do is ditch the highly processed foods and move your body a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's all. But again, whatever. That's a much bigger thing. But it's the same with SSRIs and antidepressants. They would rather numb you than give you purpose and meaning in life, because that's probably what's lacking, causing your depression or anxiety or whatever. You're maybe just not living the life that you want to live. So instead you go to the doctor or the psychiatrist or whatever, and they say, okay, let's just take this SSRI or whatever and just don't even think about that, rather, or numb it out. You know how they work, how they bind to serotonin H2A receptor, but it just blocks it, rather than things like psilocybin and microdose and mushrooms or whatever reconnects that.
Hmm.
It's just like it's doing the same thing, but in the exact opposite way. You know what I mean? With SSRIs and antidepressants compared to psilocybin.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's my understanding that the psilocybin will, I affectionately say, will tickle the serotonin receptor, and we get that kind of feel good. And that's the psilocybin molecule is very, and LSD molecule is very close to the serotonin molecule, so they do latch up onto it. The higher doses, they do, and it's and I recall Huberman talking about this. He had said that we have more serotonin cells in our prefrontal cortex, in our visual cortex. That's why we get the visual, the hallucinogenic experiences, or visionary experiences. I would like to use that word better, and kind of have that altered state where we can see forward, we can see where we're missing the mark, we can see where we're not in integrity with our word, we can see where we're lying to ourselves, and have all of these insights that are grace. They're tough on our ego in the moment. They can be, ego death is a hallmark of experiencing. Going back to your 5-MeO DMT experience, it sounds like that's pretty much like a sure bet for ego death. They call this the God molecule. It crushes your ego. Without our ego, we sink into the labyrinth of divinity, which is life. And yeah, I'm getting a little bit.
No, but this is good on the ego topic, right? Because when I sat with ayahuasca, every morning I'd sit with this yoga teacher in the morning, and ceremonies would go to like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then yoga would be at 6. So I would be there, like mainly in child's pose, just listening. But he would always say, he didn't speak English, but he would say, "Hey, ego es amigo, and he'd always say that. And I took that. That's one of the lessons that I took from that journey, that ayahuasca journey, and I brought it into Bufo, and I bring it into life. Because I'm not sure that ego is the enemy. I think it's not really realistic to just think that you're going to go through life without an ego. With there's going to be nobody in the back of your mind telling you, "Hey, do better," or "do this," or whatever. However you process who your ego is. So I have a relationship with my ego, just like I have a relationship with other things in my life, and I just want to be on the same page as them. So when I get a message from my ego, I just ask myself if it's useful. And if it's useful, then I use it. If it's not, then I discard it. But my ego is my friend. And I utilize that for many different things, for working out, for being very present, for maybe showing empathy towards somebody, But I believe that it's probably wise advice to just have a good relationship with your ego.
And I agree with that. Yeah. And that brings up how Michael Pollan says, well, the ego gets the book done. It gets the ego gets our message out to the world.
Yeah.
And the high dose experience, I guess I'm maybe insinuating, or the ego death that comes, maybe the unhealthy parts of our ego are illuminated to us, where we can see them clearly.
Yeah.
And then we can make the adjustments of putting the pieces back together, shedding what no longer serves us, bringing the light of awareness into the darkness, so we can have perhaps more expansion, the neuroplasticity around some of these maladaptive programs or traumas from yesteryear. And then again, we can see them more objectively, where we're not necessarily being puppeteered by our traumas. And so we're more integrated.
Yeah, the key word that I picked up on there too that you said was awareness. And I feel like that's so crucial, because being aware of that message, and like I said, just asking yourself if it's useful information. If it is, then use it.
And use it, yeah.
Yeah, if it's not, then discard it.
Cut it.
Yeah,
cut it.
And move on. But you have to have that awareness of, hey, just because you hear or get this message doesn't mean you have to listen to it. Yeah. You have to be aware of whether this is useful information or not.
Love that. Yeah. No, that brings up something that going to discernment. I always think, Matt, just because it's true doesn't necessarily mean that I have to say it. And that's kind of similar in the same vein of what you're describing. Just having some discernment, having that awareness, and more of what works, less of what doesn't. And to know, certainly everybody that's watching right now, to know that there's a special opportunity when we're having these high dose experiences to look at our patterns with more awareness, more objectivity. That's how the change has happened. That's why these medicines are feared. That's why they're illegal. That's why Bullshit Incorporated doesn't want us to be having these experiences, because it promotes positive change, aligned change, where we will be less likely to take the pills, less likely to drink alcohol, to sit around smoking cannabis all day, etc.
Oh yeah, but you know how the game works. You know, they'll synthesize these psilocybin and all these different things, and they'll get in the game as well. You know,
Yeah.
it's just how it works. You know?
Totally.
They're not just going to let everybody run wild and just take their market share. It's not going to happen like that.
And that's a good segue into your work and what you're doing online. I'm so proud and inspired by what you're doing online. The how you are Trojan horsing, or sharing the teachings of the medicine into movement. Like we talked earlier, we were talking about children and this GLP-1 crisis and pharma and the antidote to that, how we course correct that is doing exactly what you're doing. You're inspiring, you're living and showing and demonstrating healthy ways of living.
Yeah.
And moving your bodies, and you exemplify it. You're super strong, fit, grounded, humble. You've gone viral over the last year. You've got 1 million followers on Instagram. So I'm sure that's been a lot for you to adjust to. But with that, and I think you're just, I've been giving a lot of thought to our conversation. You're probably just getting started. There's this like exponential things keep building. There's a hunger for what you're sharing right now, and a big opportunity for you to keep showing up and to fight back against Bullshit Incorporated.
Yeah. To be honest, I kind of run the race here with blinders on in a lot of ways, because I'm so focused and sure that the mission that I'm on is the mission that I'm supposed to be on. So I don't really get too distracted with all all the opportunities that have come up, or all the follower count, or all that none of that matters. Like, it's great, the following grows, that's the more people I could reach, but the real metric I want to focus on is like how many people I actually am like inspiring to take control of their health so they can live life on their own terms. And I believe that's such a noble way to go through life. And it's very easy for me to share because it's a daily practice for me as well. So it's not like I'm trying to teach anybody anything. I'm simply just sharing what works for me and what's worked now for tens or hundreds of thousands of people that have messaged me and said like, hey, I've lost weight, or hey, I've been able to get off this medication, or hey, I'm finally present with my kids, I'm not like distracted, or hey, I'm not utilizing social media in that way. I changed my whole feed up, and now all I see is inspirational, motivational things. Like, because again, it goes back to the awareness. Like it's very simple, Matt, right? If you can go every day and you wake up in the morning, you go look in the mirror and you're like, wow, you're proud of that reflection. That's a beautiful thing, right? What do you think you're going to go through the life? What do you think you're going to go through the day like? You're probably going to say hello to people when they walk by you. You're probably going to, if your kid's feeling a little upset, you're probably going to give them the time and patience and not rush them off to school or whatever. You're probably just going to be operating at a higher frequency. And that is like what the goal is. And when I spent time with Wim Hof in the last, I spent 48 hours with him pretty much straight. And he's the most enlightened person I've ever met in my life. And I watched him interact with hundreds of people. I mean, fans, sure. Of course, it's very easy when somebody is like praising you to give them the time and attention and be humble or whatever. And you understand that they know who you are. But I also watched them interact with people who had no idea who he was and were like, no, you can't sit here, you have to be, a restaurant wasn't open, and the guy was just kind of showing us off. And still, nothing changed about him. He still interacted with that guy the same way he would have interacted with the biggest fan that he's ever met. And it was just so pleasant. And I watched the guy's kind of whole demeanor and energy change when he felt the energy of Wim. And Wim was just so at peace and just shared so much just love, even though the guy was disagreeing with him. The conversation changed completely, and he was just like, oh, you know what, we're not open, but you guys can actually sit here, you know. And Wynn didn't even say anything. And I watched that happen like dozens and dozens of times over. And kind of how I processed that kind of experience was, he just goes through life. If you look at the vibration chart or frequency chart, whatever you want to say, the highest vibration, like 800 plus, is enlightenment. And that's like has a stigma to it, right? You think enlightened, who's enlightened? Jesus was enlightened, maybe some, yeah, you know, but he's the closest embodiment to enlightenment that I've ever seen, because he's everything right underneath. He's completely at peace. He obviously loves himself in the best possible way. And he goes through life with just complete joy. Like he carried a ukulele with him that he borrowed from Siobhan's kids, like the whole time, and was just singing the whole. I must have heard him say Hakuna Matata 500 times, you know. So he was just, you know, and he's working. You know, he had the big event that he was supposed to get ready for. I said, "Are you ready for it?" He's like, "I don't know. We go and we see." You know, no script, nothing. Just goes, feels the energy, and just his presence is. That's what I feel like enlightenment is. I feel like enlightenment is almost like you're fully present for life, and anybody who comes into your kind of existence during that time, you're fully present with them, and that's what I watched him do. You know, so it was an amazing experience, just the kind of witness, and I feel like I learned a lot from him in that short period of time. But yeah, rambled on there about whatever.
Love it. Absolutely love to hear it. Yeah.
But yeah,
you're oozing enthusiasm, and I'm sure that was a game changer experience for you to have that up close and personal. You know, to see him, the way he interacts. How do you interact when people aren't watching?
Absolutely. And actually, I'll circle back, because the reason I brought that up is because I've had like the bottom of every post that I ever write is like, hey, I want to help 1 million people take control of their health so they can live life on their own terms. And when I was with Wim, his mission is currently he's got 7 kids. He's got a newborn almost. He's a 16-month-year-old little boy, and he says he's going to have more kids too. He's almost 67, but he loves children, right? And he's very, very, very vehement about kids should not be getting harmed in like wars and everything, like innocence. And I agree. I believe children are like the absolute innocence of life. Like they know no harm, they know no evil, but yet if they get harmed in wars or anything, so his mission is kind of what I'm going to join with him on. And it's just like it's just a saying, right? But it's like to raise the frequency of all of humanity. So he kind of taught me, he's like, hey, Michael, he's like, you understand, like if there was just all love, there would be no war, no evil, no violence. Like if everybody was just loved themselves. So in his way, that's kind of what I kind of viewed him doing. Like all he did was spread love to everybody he interacted with. And to me, I feel like that's what he was doing, you know, in a way. He's just raising the frequency of anybody he interacts with, because every single person that he communicated with left that experience a little happier at a higher frequency, myself included. So my new goal is going to be, I'm going to help 1 million people take control of their health, live life on their own terms while raising the frequency of humanity. So I added that little thing just the other day or whatever. But again, that's like a noble goal for me personally, because it's never ending, and it's not a metric that you can even measure, right? It's very arbitrary in that way. But I like things like that because it's like a lifelong mission. There is no destination.
Game. Yeah, we never arrive.
Yeah,
but it's a noble pursuit, like you said.
Yeah,
and a lifelong commitment, lifelong journey, lifelong mission to that's noble. Again, that we commit ourselves to. That you've committed yourself to. That you've had an opportunity to see Wim, and you know just how the power of his presence. When I think about presence, I think about he's not in his past, which he's got a deep past, deep past,
full of trauma,
his wife committed suicide, left him with 4 children. Mm-hmm. That catalyzed his healing journey, where he went into the cold to find healing and solace. And then, you know, he brought this powerful message back from nature to our collective. Mm-hmm. And I remember him sharing that he's got a vision of our planet with no sickness, believes that all dis-ease
Mm-hmm.
is a byproduct of shallow breathing, which makes sense when we're in this shallow breathing where we have constricted energies. Energies get blocked. The yogis might say that their chakras are blocked,
Mm-hmm.
but when we're breathing freely and it's flowing, energy's moving, energy's flowing, like you show on your channels, and things are not sticking. There's no stagnation, and things are flowing, and we're not going to have the dis-ease in our body.
Yeah, so I like breaking everything down to its like most foundational, simplistic viewpoint, right? So exactly what you just said. Think about what life is. You're born, you come out of your mom, you took a breath, your first breath. When you came out of your mother's womb, when you were able to breathe on your own, you took like an inhale. In between then and when you cease to exist here, it's just a collection of breaths. Like your whole life is a collection of breaths. So if you don't consciously have an awareness of how to properly breathe, think about that. You breathe however many times a day, 20, 30,000, some crazy number, right? And then when you leave, you take one last breath. Likely it's probably an exhale, and then you cease to exist on this dimension. So I just think about it all the time. I just think about, wow, that's like the most simplistic way to look at life is it's just a collection of breaths. And it's like, what do you do in that time frame? Do you just take them for granted? Do you waste them? Or do you optimize them as much as humanly possible? And then you look at like the connection of Mother Nature. Okay, we only exist because plants and trees work in synergy with us. So what plants give off, right? They give off oxygen. We take in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. They take in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. So we don't work without them.
Yeah.
So like all you have to do is just sit outside next to a tree and like it just have an awareness of that relationship. And if you can't be grateful for just that true understanding, then you need to address what's causing the issue, right? Because that's a miracle. It literally is like a miracle. And you could talk to any scientist, any guru, any monk, any whatever, and nobody's going to be able to understand that. Like why is that the way that things are? If that is in case the truth, what we've been taught, and that is true information, then how do you explain that? So I just go through life like with an awareness sometimes of when I'm pissed off in traffic or when I stub my toe or whatever. It's like, yo, is it really that big of a deal? Like, look at the miracle of life. Like, I can breathe. I have air in my lungs. Well, it's all good. There's something to be grateful for, because the day that you don't have that is the day that you leave this dimension. You move on to whatever's next. I feel like I got to see what's next sitting with Bufo, but that's a whole nother story.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
I love this the simplicity of what the angle that we're getting back to the most foundational aspects of our humanity: love, presence, awareness, the breath, nature, our connection to nature. And I think that if anybody's watching this and to just, I mean, we get the foundations, and we can start to build from this. I don't think that we can have happiness, our dreams, success, intimacy, romance, love, connection without these fundamentals, without this fundamental understanding. And the beauty of everything we're talking about, it's free.
Yeah.
It's free.
All of it.
And the breath and you were talking about optimizing your lifestyle, or we get 20 to 30,000 breaths per day, some number like that. And that right now breath work is buzzy in our culture, largely because of Wim. I practice 30 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes after lunch every single day, and I absolutely love it. Inspired by Wim and his journey, and it's just something that I do, and it's part of my mental health, and it's part 6 to 7 days, or no, 5 to 6 days per week. I feel fucking fantastic, and I feel great, high vibrational energy. Yeah, 1 to 2 days per week, human, you
Yeah.
know. But the power of connecting to our breath, to building our life around that, it is our life force, and
Mhm.
people take that for granted. So I guess I'm sharing this as a means of inspiring people that might be watching. And then I'd love to hear, do you have a breathing practice, or
Yeah.
how does that look like? How do you, I'd love for you to share some of your wisdom. I know that you struck a major chord in our culture. Practical strategy. I know everything that we've been talking about has been somewhat practical
Mhm.
and down to earth. And again, we'd love to hear your thoughts and impressions.
Yeah, so this is a good segue, right? Because I got to sit with Wim, and Wim came and did my movement practice, and my movement practice is more of like almost breath work than a movement practice. It's just like a moving breath work, I guess you could kind of look at it as. And what Wim Hof did with cold therapy, obviously he found peace in the cold, dealing with everything he was dealing with, and then breath work, he kind of modernized what you could kind of say, I guess, is like an ancient style of breath work, or maybe he kind of,
Sumo,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, fire
and then
breathing,
maybe he
yeah.
threw his own twist on it, and
Mhm,
basically gave it to the world.
mhm.
And like you said, like you do breath work because you learned from Wim Hof at some point 10, 15 years ago, whatever it
And the
was.
science that he supports is really, it's encouraging. So it's not like, so
Yeah.
there's a framework I think is really important.
And the beautiful thing about Wim is he's not a doctor, he's not a scientist. No, he's a real guy who healed himself with breath work and cold, and was like, "Hey, put me to the test." And then guess what? He showed up and has disproved every doctor, scientist, every genius, so-called genius out there. He's stood up against, or just not even stood up against, just stood up for what he believed in, and he's been right every time,
Yeah,
you know?
I've never heard one really naysayer that has
Yeah.
any legitimate claims to
And
his work from a
he
scientific
doesn't do it
standpoint.
out of ego, he just does it out of truth. He knows his truth because he experienced it. It's like, how much can you read about mental toughness in a book and expect to be mentally tough when you're put in a situation? Like, it doesn't even make sense. You have to go and endure and suffer, and then you know through that experience that you're now more capable to endure and suffer. Reading about that in a book, I'm not sure you're really able to get that same experience. But anyway, the movement and breathwork practice that I have, and the reason I say that is because when I was sitting with Wim, he's like, "You're doing the same thing that I've done. You're just modernizing movement and breath work as one." Because essentially, the movement practice that I do, if you were to like see it from the outside and you knew anything about kind of Eastern movement or ancient kind of movement, you'd be like, "Oh, that's very qigong. Those are qigong," and qigong just translate to cultivating energy. It would be like a practice that you'd see, like some movements are very similar to qigong, where you'd see grandmas in the parks of Asia doing like waves or swings or twists, and you'd be like, it just, when you see me doing them, you're like, why is this jacked guy doing them in so much more of a ballistic type way? Well, the reason that it's like that is because I started this practice for myself, and my style of training comes from like the fast twitch fascist system, plyometric based, more Soviet style movement. And I did it as a way because it was fitting for what I was trying to accomplish. I'm an athlete. I like martial arts and kind of more explosive type movements. So that's how the practice kind of has evolved into what it is now. And just because I've done it for just so many hours now, I know the importance of breath. So I wanted to keep myself in a parasympathetic state as much as humanly possible. And I find that, take when you go for a run, right? If you go for a run, you're going to get the runner's high. Well, if you push yourself to a certain degree where you're not used to that cadence and you disconnect from your breath, you're going to end up in a sympathetic state, right? You're not going to be able to last that long. So what I've been able to do with the movement is basically find like a rhythmic breathing pattern and then follow the breath up into the intensity that I can handle. So I can handle a very intense movement because the breath is synchronized. But when I instruct and I teach and I share the movements with people, I tell them, hey, in the beginning, you just have to get comfortable. You kind of have to, almost like plant medicine, you have to surrender to it. You have to be comfortable with it and develop like the relationship of just being being at ease. Don't worry. Your brain draws a lot of energy when you're constantly thinking about, hey, what, are they looking at me? Am I doing this right? Like that pulls a lot of energy. What you're trying to do with the movement practice at the end of the day is cultivate energy. You're not trying to drain energy. You're not trying to waste energy. So with the movement practice in the beginning, when you're first getting started, you really just have to get comfortable with the movements, get familiar with them, ease your mind, try to get to the present moment. And then from there, you want to be able to progress to like when you synchronize your breath. And then when you're able to do that over time and you're completely synchronized and the breath and the movement as one, you're able to optimize the most amount of energy. So this might sound like a lot of like crazy, jargon or whatever, but when you do it, it's very simple. It's something that anyone can do. And that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create something that wasn't just for elite level athletes who are trying to compete or fight in the UFC or anything. It's great for that as well, because from the scientific standpoint, it gets the blood circulation going in a very efficient way, gets your body fully oxygenated, warms your lungs and diaphragm up in a very efficient, effective way. That's all great. But it also does wonders for somebody who's just getting off the couch, who's bariatric, who's 200 pounds overweight, and just
this can meet anyone where
anyone.
they're at. Yeah.
Because here's the beauty in it as well. And this is another thing that I touched on with Wim and many other people that I've trained with, is I do the movements the way that I do them because my anatomy is the way that it is, and it feels good for me to do it that way. If me and you are doing the movements together and I see you're swinging your arms slightly different, I'm going to encourage that, because I'm going to say, hey, Matt, like, oh, I say, I got a shoulder issue that I'm dealing with. Great. I said, listen to that, because it's your mind-body connection. So do the swings that way, but understand that the underlying goal of this is to connect your mind and body, is to have that awareness of where you're holding energy, which today you would call inflammation or tension, but thousands of years ago, it's just trapped energy in your body. You didn't have that word. So I believe that's the same exact thing. I believe Qigong is thousands of years old, right? So I believe that cultivating energy or releasing energy or unlocking energy in your body is that Qigong. That's exactly what it is. So I would encourage you. I'd say, yeah, go with it. Now connect the breath. And then, so not all the movements are done the same for everybody, but I have it structured that way because I want to encourage people to kind of self-discover and see what works for them. Powerful. So that's what the mind, body, energy movement has become, and what people are sharing all over the world now.
Yeah.
But that's originally what kind of took off the account. People started sharing it all over the world. Now I'd say 80% of the people you probably see online doing the movements are probably just doing them for likes to grow their accounts, which is fine, whatever. Nobody owns movement, right? And movement is for everybody.
Sure.
But at the deeper system is definitely, it's like a moving meditation with breath work, which at the fulcrum, at the main.
Yeah, I'm super curious about how you're describing the cultivation of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And because one might look at the movement as exercise itself. Okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a value there. We're out getting the morning sunlight, feeling good, we're moving the body. But the idea of potentially charging our body up, and so we can lift more at the gym or run further distances or whatever it might be. That idea is really kind of an enticing, alluring notion, because I think everybody wants more energy. Even if you have strong energy, I think I have strong energy. It's like, I know there's another level to be unlocked. I know, and I'm trying my to figure that out. And I do my practices and I do this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm happy with where I'm at. But know that there's, again, more levels to be unlocked. So I'm curious about the cultivation of energy.
Yeah. So let's break it down to its foundation, right? Let's think about a time where you don't have a lot of energy. Let's say either you're sick, you're dealing with a virus, or you have an injury, or whatever example you can.
Might have had a glass of wine, stayed out a little late, had some crappy food, or good food that was maybe something I wouldn't normally eat.
Perfect example, right? So let's say you had a couple glasses of wine and you ate some shitty food. So what you've done the next day is your mind and body are disconnected in some way. Maybe your mind is like, man, I want to go to the gym and get a good workout. And your body is telling you no. Your body is telling you,
Rest day, sit on
yeah,
your butt.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's sending signals to your mind of saying, no, this is uncomfortable. You have to take a crap first. You got to get this out of your system. Your body is now craving that alcohol because now you teased it with poison, and now it's going through that phase of like, hey, you're not going to give us more here. Like, what's going on? So you're a little bit hungover, obviously lethargic, likely because you had not a great night of sleep. So basically, you did all these things that kind of disconnect. So you created all these energy blockages or trapped energy in your body. And now there's a disconnect from your mind and body. So with that said, obviously, that would be a perfect example of like, now how are you gonna cultivate this energy? How are you gonna make this all better? You know? So let's just take the movement practice. Okay. So I've never had an instance where personally or with somebody else, you didn't feel better after you started moving. You know what I mean? Likely our bodies and anatomies are meant for movement. Movement is medicine. I truly believe that.
And from a hunter-gatherer standpoint, our evolutionary past, our hunter-gatherer ancestors were always on the move. And this sedentary lifestyle we have now is relatively new the last 100 years.
Yeah. So you lying in bed being hungover, feeling like crap is not going to do anything for you in terms of like releasing that energy or unlocking that trapped energy. So with the movement system, obviously I don't drink or do any of these poisons to my body anymore because I'm too aware of the detrimental effects to my body. I'm all about like mind body connection and cultivating the most amount of energy. I believe the person who lives the most abundant, fulfilling life is the one who has the most amount of energy. So there are no trapped energies. There's no trapped energy anywhere in your body because you're putting it to use and you're living life. You're either you're giving that energy off to others so that they could kind of cultivate it in abundant and it can compound from there, or you're doing something with it. You know, if you have a lot of energy, you're just not going to go to sleep. You know, that's the opposite, right? You're going to go do something with it. So anyway, to your example, so you did all those things the night before. Now you're going to do the movements, synchronize the breath, create that awareness of like what's going on, and just utilizing the rhythmic breathing to kind of get that negative energy out of your body. And I truly believe that you're able to do that through like a conscious awareness, movement, and breath work. I truly do, because what else is going to get it out? You think it's yeah, sure, it's just going to subside over time, but I'm just I don't know. I'm exploring it, and I'm on a journey of self-discovery as well. So it's like it's just something that I've found to be extremely beneficial for people in kind of all avenues.
Beautiful, powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I so appreciate you coming on to share your journey, to share these practices, to share your experiences around psychedelia. You have a company, Moosh. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Moosh was an interesting story, right? Because after all those, after the ayahuasca journey, it's like I knew I felt called to like kind of help people in some way.
Pay it forward, right?
Yeah, I was like, but I wasn't going to jump, full in with like ayahuasca or any of those things.
That's
I believe a lot.
You got to go train in the jungle,
Yeah.
and there's a big responsibility.
And I think there's so many benefits that can come from mushrooms, and especially microdosing, right? Because not everybody's willing to make that giant jump, do a heroic dose, sit and address certain traumas or whatever in their life, right? So like I said, how I do anything is how I do everything. I wanted to seek out the best possible mushrooms and basically create this microdosing company where I could share with friends and families, give them alternative to SSRIs and antidepressants, because I was finding benefits from it. From my integration back in from the ayahuasca and everything, I was finding good benefits microdosing as like kind of bowling with bumpers, kind of. It was just kind of keeping me, on the right track. It wasn't like huge like signaling messages, but it was like, hey, just stay focused, be present, be aware, And that's what it was doing for me. So I was like, hey, I said, with the legalization of mushrooms, I thought it was going to move a lot faster. So I was like, hey, I said, this could be a business opportunity as well in the future when things get legalized and all that. That obviously hasn't happened just yet. But anyway, that's what kind of led me to the social media, because Moosh kept getting red flagged on social media, because anytime you mention mushrooms or microdosing or whatever, you're immediately like red flagged on social media. So eventually I was like, you know what? I'm going to build up my own social media. I said, I'm tired of Instagram and Facebook and all that red flagging me. I'll just build up my own account. And sure enough, I started building up my own account through like movement and mindset stuff that I was doing already with the same goal in mind, just to help people kind of, yeah. And then the account blew up. So now the account has become much bigger than obviously Moosh, but it's the same kind of mission. It's just different avenues, because now I'm helping people take control of their health through movement and mindset, whereas Moosh was like allowing people the opportunity to kind of self-heal through the utilization of mushrooms. And better than anybody with when the intention is right behind like those type. It's not like mushrooms do anything for you. They allow you to do things that maybe you keep getting in the way of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the mushroom does any kind of magic. It allows you to do that.
Maybe a slight boost in mood and energy levels, but then what are we going to do with that?
And maybe that's all you need.
Yeah, just a little bit. I always use the analogy that when we're stuck, we're like the boulder, and the microdosing with aligned practices, or the macrodosing, is like a wedge underneath the boulder. Then the boulder starts moving. It's like, okay, life isn't so bad. I got a little momentum's powerful.
Oh yeah.
And then we're moving. We're going for that morning walk, that walk after dinner. We're making healthier choices. We're sleeping better. All of these things. We're thinking clearer, more connection to our heart, more courageous decisions, etc. So it has the potential to set in motion kind of a virtuous cycle of good perpetuating good.
Yeah. And to me, all these things come back to the same exact thing. And that's the key word there is gratitude. And it's like you could end up living this rat race a lot of times where you're just so disconnected and you're not fully aware of all the stuff that you should be grateful for. And I believe that mushrooms and movement and mindset and all these things, it all comes back to gratitude. It's like the key to happiness. And I don't think depression exists with gratitude in the equation, right?
Yeah.
Can you be depressed and grateful at the same time? Like, I'm not sure you can.
I don't think you can.
No. If you're depressed, you're usually, for lack of a better word, selfish in a way, because you're thinking about yourself. Like that's going to make you depressed. You're thinking about either the past or you're worried about the future. I'm by no means an expert on depression, so don't quote me on it. But just in my little experience here in life, I find that it's a very good idea to, anytime you're sad or depressed or anything, to start thinking about the things you're grateful for. And mushrooms are a beautiful way to do that, because they give you that heightened awareness of the air on the wind on your skin, or the colors that you're now aware of, or the sound of the birds as you go for a walk, or any of these things, or my presence with you, and just understanding that you're a human being and you're putting good out into the world, rather than me just thinking, oh, I'm better than you, and those negative thoughts. It's just like life is a collection of breath. Life is your every day is full of a lot of thoughts. So those thoughts are going to determine which kind of road you end up going down. So yeah, gratitude is the best attitude.
So grateful for you. Is there anything that we didn't get to today that you would have liked to have shared? And how do people connect with your journey? How do they follow you?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. They can find me on social media or whatever, if it's meant to be. But if I could add value to anybody's life, then yeah, hopefully we cross paths on some way. But hey, I'm on a journey of self-discovery, so I'm just enjoying the journey. I'm not sure how much I really have control of, so I'm just enjoying the journey.
Well, super inspiring.
Yeah,
super grateful for you, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you.